Hi, how you doing? I have a few things that I want to get done this afternoon. I'm going to head on down into the grow room in the basement and pot up the onion seedlings. They're looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with them. And second of all, I need to go through my storage garlic. I think there's something going on there, and I feel like I have a problem with some of them deteriorating. And finally, I've mentioned that I'm going on a trip, and I thought I'd go over how I'm leaving instructions for things to be watered while I'm away. My name is Sharon. I garden on a large yard in a small town in east central Saskatchewan, Zone 3. Welcome to my Sask Garden. So here's my onion. As I said, I'm pretty happy with them. They're in a big need of a watering, so I thought it was probably the best time to go ahead and transplant them and then give them a good watering. And these are the Spanish Medallion. They are sure growing fast. I keep them under a different light, not under the grow lights here. I keep them under a light just in the other room that has 12 hours instead of these are set at 16. I don't know that it makes that much of a difference. However, it is recommended that they don't get a whole lot of light to initiate bulbing. So the lights in the other room are set for 12 hours, and I don't think they're as strong as these are. They seem to be doing okay so far. So I've already got soil Pro-Mix in these jumbo 6 cells. They're bigger ones. And the reason I'm using these is because of the size. I couldn't fit a full flat underneath those lights that I'm going to put them under and on the shelf. The shelf is just a narrow one. So I'm going to use these, and I'm going to put, I think, 5 seedlings in each. So each 6 cell, jumbo 6 cell will give me 30 seedlings. And as I've mentioned before, or I have mentioned before, that I have space to grow about 75 this year. So if I pot up 90, that will leave plenty of room for some that maybe don't really look all that great, or maybe some that might, eventually wither and die away. You never know what's going to go on with seedlings. So, okay, I'm going to start with these Spanish Medallion. And the first thing I'm going to do is give them a little trim, the ones that have grown a bit over the last few days. I think a few more have germinated as well. And then, just like I've done previously, when removing seedlings from one of these trays that I've broadcast sown in, just take it out like that gently. You can see the roots are very nice. And the HP, the Pro-Mix HP, stands for high porosity, and high porosity means that there is extra perlite in the mix. And 2 things that happen. One thing is they come apart very easy because of that extra perlite. They really come apart very easily. Secondly, what extra perlite does is it just allows for very good root growth. It's so porous that it's not difficult for the roots to reach down. So there's 4 and there's 5, and I'm just going to give that a little bit of a whirl at first. Just going to make 5 little holes, nothing too great. And then push them in some. These roots are really quite long already. So I think that's probably a good time to pot these up before they get going too much. And then they'll stay in these containers until I plant them in the garden. I feel like I'll probably have more than the 90 that I want to pot up. So I may do up a little extra and then phone a friend and see if anybody needs some extra onion. Here I think I'll forego the holes and just see what happens when I do that. Just lay it on the soil, poke it in. You really just want to make sure the root is down there, and you want to make sure that it's not buried too deeply. When they start to bulb in the garden, it seems that they actually begin to push themselves up out of the soil. I don't think they do, but that's the way it appears. That bulb kind of appears on top of the soil more. And, well, once that time comes, I can tell you about the method that's called spooning your onion, which is to take a spoon and then sort of go around the top of the onion to expose more of the top. Onion, the bulb itself always sort of grows right on top of the soil with only the roots, or the top half of the bulb with only the roots sort of exposed. Well, that seems to be working quite well. A little piddly, but I'll just continue on with that. Well, there's 30, and there's a whole bunch that I still have left over. So I'm just going to go ahead and pot up the others. Perhaps honestly, I'd rather have the Spanish Medallion than the candy for sure. I do like the Cartier. That's a good storage onion. So if I'm going to plant less of something, it would be the candy. And then perhaps I can still use these up in one of these cells. This is the Cartier. I don't think there's as many as there was of the Spanish Medallion. So, yeah, I think you can tell just by the number of roots the Spanish Medallion had more, and I think that was simply because there's more plants. So I'll see if I get 30 out of here. I'm not sure if I will, maybe. The other thing is I'm going to use the nicest ones and not anything that's kind of small or weak, like perhaps that one. Just extra perlite in the soil is just, or in the soilless mix, is just so great for taking apart the seedlings. It's one of the best things, I think, about that high porosity mix. I've tried other mixes from ProMix and not necessarily for seeding, but just for general potting mix. And I've gone back to this HP, and I try not to buy any of the other kinds. I really do like this. I really do like the high porosity aspect of it. I also use it for all of my houseplants and my succulents. Some of the cacti, I actually add even a little bit more perlite so that it drains really, really well. And there's a small little weak one. I'm sure it would grow, but if I have a choice, I'll just choose the nice ones, which honestly most of these are. That small weak one may have been one that's only recently germinated. That could be. This one's a little bit weaker too. And weaker, not necessarily, but they're not as advanced, I guess, as some of the others, as most of the others are. And we'll get going on these. They do want to kind of fall over to the side a bit. So when you're doing this, they actually, initially when you put them in, or before you kind of water them down or soak them, you do want to kind of firm them in as well. And those roots will make their way down to the bottom of the pot. Even if some of them are just slightly on the surface, they will make their way. They're going to search out the water, and I will be bottom watering these, so the good water or the moistest soil will always be toward the bottom. And you want that for plants going into the garden. Nice, deep, long roots to search out the water. Otherwise, it lands up not using the stored water way down low. So you just want to kind of firm them. I hope you can see that okay. Just want to kind of put a finger on each side and just kind of firm it into the soil so they stand somewhat upright and not floppy. All right, I'm going to finish those off. All right, I'm all done. What I landed up doing was planting 15 of the candy, and it's probably the least favorite, well, so far, the least favorite of the onions for me. I really like the Cartier, so I planted up 30 of those. And the Spanish Medallion are new, so I planted up 30 here and another 15 along with the 15 of the candy in this 6-cell. And I've not grown the Spanish Medallion before. It's supposed to grow big onions, and they're supposed to have pretty good storage capability, as well as being a sweet Spanish type. So I thought I'd give it a try, but at the same time, I still have all of this left. This is the candy. I still have quite a few, and this is the Spanish Medallion. So I'm sure I have another 30 at least of these, and I may pot them up, and I hate to see them go to waste, you know, and so I may pot them up and see if I can, like I said, phone a friend and see if anybody else needs some onion. I'm going to give them a watering, and then I'm going to show you where I'm going to put them. First, I'll give them a good spritz, settle all the soil down. So here's where they're going to grow on. This is just a shelving unit in the back office that I use for recording in a studio now. And I usually have decorative kind of succulents on it, but in this case, because the timer is set for 12 hours, I've put it here, and it's just I don't know, maybe 4 inches from these lights. So far they seem like they're sufficient. I don't think anything is reaching for light, so I think they can grow on here just fine. And as you can see, that's why I wanted to use these jumbo 6-cells, because 3 of them fit across just perfectly and directly under the lights, with none of them hanging out into the darkness that would cause them to, you know, reach toward the light. So we'll see if this works. We make do where we have to. So as I said, I needed to go over the garlic, and I thought I'd do that along with you. This is the way I store garlic every year. They sit on this tray directly on the basement floor in a room just under the stairs, and it's not a heated room. It doesn't have a heat vent going into it, so it stays fairly cool in there. I've found over the past number of years that it's perfect, and I generally have garlic. I still have garlic that is usable when I'm harvesting the new garlic, so I have it right through till August. This year, however, is a different story, and I read that because some locations in Saskatchewan had a great deal of rain in June, and I have it recorded how much it was. Oh, it was just, I mean, at one time we got like 5 inches all at once, and another time, you know, 2 or 3 inches, and that happened throughout the month of June. And then we went straight into drought, pretty much, with very little rain after that for the rest of the year. And that causes problems, I guess, with the garlic bulbs as they're developing, taking on too much moisture. Now, in June, that would have been about a month before they send up their scapes. So they're developing and they're bulbing or forming cloves at that time, I guess, the way I understand it. Anyways, so these are still some loose cloves that I have. And I think this is from when I broke them all apart to plant in the fall. And so I just left these loose cloves in it, and they're not trying to sprout. They do have some roots growing here at the bottom, and that's an indication of a storage problem. But the bulb is still very firm. I can't press into it at all, and it's still doing good. And there's a few of them that are like that, exactly like that, with the roots coming out the bottom. The bulb is firm, there's no sprouting. And if I were to cut into it, the very center of it would be just a little bit loose, for lack of a better word. So it would look like it's going to start sprouting at some point. And then there's this. And these have just disintegrated and dried down to nothing. That's what's left of the garlic clove. So they've not rotted, but they have certainly dried up to nothing. And I've never had that happen before, nor have I had that amount of rain in June before. So I'm going to say that that's the problem. This one is nice. It has those roots though, and you know, it smells like garlic. And at this point in a storage life, you should not be able to smell garlic at all, unless you actually cut into the clove. This one as well is drying up to nothing. And this one is still good, although it lost some of its leaves at some point. But this one is, you know, if you cut away the brown, you could still use that. I'm just going to separate the ones that I'm going to have to throw out. So same with these bulbs. The whole bulb, this one is okay. I feel each clove and each one feels firm. So that one is fine. This one is fine. Paper is good. All is good. And it doesn't smell like garlic at all. This one is good. So this is March. So, you know, I'm hoping for another 4 months out of these. This one, on the other hand, is dried up to nothing. It's actually, it's got some like mold spores in there. This is the same. I won't break it apart because I don't want those mold spores. This one has one clove that feels like it's good right here. Maybe I will break it apart and see if I can get that one out of there. I'm wearing rubber gloves or disposable gloves because I really sliced my thumb this morning with a knife. And so it's got a Band-Aid on it, and I don't want to get it wet and dirty. So this one is still good. The wrapping looks a little dark, but it seems like it should still be fine. This bulb, not good. This entire bulb, not good. Maybe this one, but that feels a little soft too. This bulb is all firm. This bulb is not good. You can tell almost by looking at them. They're kind of yellowish compared to the striping on the good ones. So that is not good. This one is, and this one is not. So 4, 5, 6, 7. And there's 3, 6, 7. So half of them have gone off and dried up to nothing and molded inside, I guess. They were well cured when I put them into storage. They were no different than any other year. They didn't have excessively humid weather to dry in or cure in. They were fine. I always check before I put them into storage. That's when I cut it down this low. And when I cut it, I smell the cut end. And if you can smell garlic at that point, they are still not quite dry enough. You should not be able to smell garlic. That's the hard neck right in the center. That hard neck should be dry all the way to the bottom. And that gives you good storage life. And so, yeah, well, you know, honestly, I grow too much garlic, and this is going to be plenty for me for the next few months, I'm sure. I often land up with the extra garlic. I've been making a garlic kind of concentrate to spray around the yard to deter mosquitoes, and that really does work if you make a really strong one. But I'll tell you, it's hard to take. It's hard to smell while you're spraying it. It's really quite stinky. Anyways, I just thought I'd go over that with you. And again, it has to do with the amount of rain that we had in June and the growing conditions, the environmental factors that they were subject to. So, you know, no fault of my own, really. The fact that they were in a raised bed and had really good drainage was probably a huge help at the time. And, you know, possibly that's why I have as many as I do that are still good. It does make me worry, though, about the bulbs that I planted. And I hope that they're all going to be okay and that I don't land up with only half a crop, because as it is, I only planted half as much as I generally do. That's really all I have to say about the garlic. That's unfortunate, but that's the way gardening goes sometimes. There's always something that comes along, it seems. And, you know, I never knew about that problem with lots of moisture before. Now I know. Nothing you can really do about it at the time. It's not like you can dry out your soil, really. You know, when you get that amount of rain, you just have to deal with it. But as I said, I think the raised bed did help. And perhaps the only thing I could have done at the time, had I known, maybe I would have taken off the mulch. I keep it straw mulched throughout the year. And perhaps if I'd have taken off the mulch, it would have given it an opportunity to dry out a little faster. Maybe that would have helped. I don't know. But that's the story about garlic today. So finally, I thought I'd talk about how I'm preparing all of my seedlings to not have my attention for the next, almost a month that I'll be gone. It turns out that I'm going on a special trip with a friend. You know, it's worrisome to me for seedlings that I won't have my eyes on them every day. However, I do have Andy, who is willing to look at everything daily and water them. He's very good technically. He's not really a gardener. However, I think he's learned a lot over the last 25 years. I'm sure if he thought about what he knew when we moved here in terms of gardening and what he knows now, he'd be surprised at how much he does know now. As I said, he's very technically minded, and he's an old soldier, and so he knows how to take instruction and follow instruction and do everything to the letter. And I am just that kind of person that will leave instructions to the letter. So, you know, bit anal, I know, but that's just the way of it. And so I just thought I'd show you what I've planned for him. What I've basically done is, as things dried and they needed a watering, just before they needed watering, I weighed them, and then I watered them as I would normally, and then I weighed them again. In this case, this is bellflower. I weighed it today. It was 150 grams. And then I soaked it in a tray of water, and then I timed how long I soaked it for, and I soaked it for 10 minutes. And then I waited again, and I've actually got it all recorded on a sheet of paper, how I did that. In some other cases, I wasn't sure what to do with the geraniums, you know, because they won't all fit into a black tray. And again, I'm having to sort of juggle the lights to make sure I have room for everything under lights until I get back. So for the geraniums, I landed up putting them in these tinfoil trays. That worked pretty good. I put the same amount, or I tried to put the same amount or the same weight in each. And then here I have, you know, when this tray weighs 700 grams, to add 750 grams or 3/4 of a liter of water. And that'll work. And that won't keep them. What I tried to do was to add an amount of water that won't saturate them completely, and at the same time provide enough water. And that bottom soaking, they shouldn't get overwatered. And he's aware that if there's water left after about 10 minutes, if there's water left in the tray, that he should drain that off, and that plants shouldn't sit in the water. So I've got 3 trays of those. The Lisianthus, you know, were a big one for me. And that's how I sort of started on this, because, you know, they're fussy. So I started probably, well, at least 3 weeks ago, weighing. And in each case, I've got everything named, what's in this tray. And here I've got it between 900 and 1100 grams to add 1.2 liters of water, or 1200 grams of water. And again, that's going to provide water at least at the roots. And for this one at 1200 grams, or 900 to 1100 grams, it's really not yet that dry. And Lisianthus don't like to get really dry in between, like some things do. My next example. My next example is the Dusty Miller seedlings. The onion seedlings would be the same. They like to, you know, I like to bring them down quite dry before I water them again. Same thing with the geraniums, because they don't need to be constantly moist. And I think that they're actually better almost dry right down to the bottom before they're watered again. So this one, same thing. It's 1200 grams for all of these, whereas the Lisianthus is 1200 grams, but there's less plants in the tray. So these I watered today. They were very dry, at about 100 grams or so per 6 cell. And then again to add 1.2 liters of water to the tray. And then under here are the potted plants and things. And so these are the potted geraniums. And again, each one has specific instructions for that plant. So that's it. That's all I got today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks a lot for hanging out with me today. By the time you see this, I will be on my trip. And for those of you who follow me on Facebook, I will probably have some photos posted up there. Just hopefully I can find some photos of flowers and gardens that I can post along the way. But I'll have more information there on my Facebook page. You can find a link to that just in the description of my YouTube page, I believe. Anyways, thanks again for hanging out with me today. And if you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up, tell your friends, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Thanks again. See you.